My name is Alexandra, and I'm a 32-year-old woman trapped in an electric nightmare of my own making. The trouble started, ironically, with something as innocent as childhood friendship. Bella and I grew up together, as close as sisters. Our bond formed in the sandbox and sealed over scraped knees and shared secrets. She was the calm to my storm, the poised figure amidst my chaotic energy. But as we grew, I watched Bella transform, like a butterfly, but into someone I barely recognized. I remember the day it changed. We were 12, sitting in my cluttered bedroom, surrounded by video games and comic books, my world. Bella, twirling a lock of her hair, said, "Alex, do you ever think about being popular? Like being one of those girls everyone admires?" I had laughed it off, but Bella hadn't. As the years rolled on, she morphed into the epitome of teenage allure. Her smile could stop boys mid-sentence, and her laugh became a siren song in the hallways of our high school. She was worshipped, and with that worship, she changed. The sweet girl I knew was replaced by someone who saw friendship as a ladder to climb, each rung a step further away from me. But even as we drifted apart, she never turned her venom on me. She'd saunter into my world, dropping her queenly facade, and ask for my advice on boys, as if we were still those little girls sharing secrets in a treehouse. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. Life took us in different directions after high school. I ventured off to New York for college, embracing the chaos of the city, while Bella stayed back, reigning over our small town like a provincial queen. It wasn't until years later, after I had returned home and started dating Mark, that Bella and I truly collided again. Mark was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, kind, attentive, and with a smile that could light up the darkest of my days. I introduced him to my family with a heart full of hope, not knowing that this would be the beginning of my undoing. It was a chance encounter. Bella, as if summoned by some wicked twist of fate, appeared at my doorstep just as Mark and I were leaving. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over him. "Is this the famous Mark?" she asked, a hint of something sinister in her tone. "Yeah, this is him," I replied, a knot forming in my stomach. Bella's gaze lingered on Mark a moment too long before she flashed a predatory smile. "Well, aren't you going to introduce me properly, Alex?" The unease that had started as a mere flutter in my heart grew into a storm as I watched Bella weave her web around Mark. She was a master at this game, her words honeyed and her laughs perfectly timed. Mark, bless him, was oblivious to the danger. He was just being polite. But to Bella, politeness was an invitation. A few days later, I arranged for the three of us to meet at a cafe, thinking it would put my mind at ease. How wrong I was. As Mark excused himself to the restroom, Bella leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Alex, I have to tell you something. I think I'm falling for Mark." I stared at her, the words not quite making sense. "What are you talking about, Bella?" Her eyes, dark and serious, met mine. "I can't help it. He's just so perfect." It felt like a slap in the face, a betrayal wrapped in velvet. I wanted to scream, to call her out, but the fear of losing Mark silenced me. I forced a smile, a mask to hide the crumbling world inside me. "Stop joking, Bella. That's not funny." She laughed, a sound that's once comfort, now a harbinger of my impending heartache. "Relax, Alex. I'm not going to steal your boyfriend. It's just a little crush." But as I sat there, watching her watch him, I knew it was more than a crush. Bella didn't do things by halves. She was a storm, and she was about to break everything in her path. The cafe was bustling with the usual morning crowd, a cacophony of clinking cups and casual chatter. Mark, Bella, and I found a quiet corner. I could feel the weight of Bella's gaze, heavy and unsettling, as she studied Mark with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "So, Mark, Alex tells me you're a doctor." "That must be fascinating," Bella began, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. Mark, ever the humble, nodded. "It has its moments, but it's just a job at the end of the day." Bella's laugh was a melody designed to ensnare. "Just a job? Saving lives sounds more like a superhero's work to me." I watched, a silent spectator in a play I never wanted to attend. Mark was oblivious to the undercurrents, responding with polite but disinterested answers. But Bella, she was relentless. Each word, each gesture was a calculated move in her game of seduction. As the conversation drifted, I felt an increasing sense of isolation. It was as if I were a ghost at my own table, unseen and unheard. When Mark excused himself, Bella turned to me, her mask slipping slightly. "Alex, aren't you worried?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "Worried about what?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Bella leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. "That someone might take him away from you. Someone like me." The raw honesty in her words struck me. This was no joke or playful banter. This was a declaration of war. "Bella, what has gotten into you?" "He's my boyfriend," I said, my voice tinged with disbelief and hurt. She shrugged, a predator confident in her prowess. "I can't help who I fall for, Alex. And let's be honest, you and Mark, I give it 6 months. I wanted to lash out, to scream at her for her betrayal, but the words died in my throat. Instead, I sat there paralyzed by the realization that the childhood friend I once knew was long gone. Mark returned, oblivious to the tension. As we left the cafe, Bella's parting words were a knife in my back. "Let's do this again soon. I'd love to get to know Mark better." The ride home was a silent one. Mark, unaware of the storm brewing, chatted about mundane things. But my mind was elsewhere, trapped in a whirlpool of betrayal and fear. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. Bella had thrown down the gauntlet, and I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. She wanted a war, she would get one. But unlike her, I would play the long game. I would wait, watch, and when the time was right, I would strike. Bella may have been the queen of manipulation, but I had a few tricks up my sleeve too. In the quiet darkness of my room, a plan began to take shape. A plan that would bring Bella's world crashing down around her. It was a dangerous path, one that could destroy everything I held dear. But I was past the point of no return. Bella had made this personal, and I was going to make sure she regretted it. The days that followed were a blur of unease and suspicion. Mark, caught up in his work, remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Bella, on the other hand, seemed to be everywhere, a constant, looming presence in my life. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when my fears were confirmed. Walking down the familiar streets of our town, I saw them, Bella and Mark, strolling together, lost in conversation. They looked comfortable, too comfortable, with each other. My heart pounded against my chest as I approached them, my mind racing. "Mark, Bella," I called out, my voice shaking. They turned, surprise etched on their faces. Mark's expression changed to one of concern as he saw my distress. "Alexandra, what's wrong?" he asked, stepping towards me. "Why are you two together?" The words tumbled out, a mix of accusation and disbelief. Bella's face was a mask of feigned innocence. "Oh, we just bumped into each other. Decided to catch up, you know?" Her casual dismissal of the situation fueled my anger. "Catch up, really, Bella? Or is this one of your little games?" Mark looked between us, confusion turning to realization. "Alex, is this what you think? There's nothing going on." Bella's eyes met mine, a challenge in their depths. "Why, Alexandra? Do you not trust your boyfriend? Or is it me you don't trust?" The confrontation was drawing an audience, curious onlookers pausing to witness the drama. Mark reached out, trying to calm the situation, but I shrugged him off. "Bella, I've known you my whole life. You're like a sister to me. How could you do this?" My voice broke, the weight of years of friendship crumbling under the weight of her betrayal. Bella's response was cold, calculated. "Alex, dear, it's not my fault you can't keep a man interested. Maybe if you were a little less mundane." Those words, sharp and cruel, cut deeper than any physical wound. I looked at Mark, searching for something, anything that would reassure me. But all I saw was a man caught in the crossfire, unsure of his standing. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. "Mark, we're done," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Mark's face crumpled, a mix of hurt and confusion. "Alex, please, let's talk about this." But I was past talking. I turned to Bella, my former friend, now nothing more than a stranger. "And you, Bella, enjoy the victory. I hope it was worth it." With those final words, I walked away, leaving behind the shattered pieces of what I once thought was unbreakable. The pain was raw, a gaping wound in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a burning determination. Bella had taken something precious from me, but she didn't realize the war she had started. I would rebuild, stronger and wiser, and when the time was right, Bella would know the true cost of her actions. The high school reunion was supposed to be a night of nostalgia, a chance to relive the carefree days of youth. Instead, it became a battleground. The moment I entered the decorated gymnasium, I knew I had walked into enemy territory. There she was, Bella, holding court in the center of the room, radiant and confident, basking in the admiration of our former classmates. The sight of her stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me: anger, betrayal, and a burning desire for retribution. I tried to keep a low profile, sticking to the fringes, but fate had other plans. "Hey, Alexandra, over here! Come sit with us!" called out an old classmate, waving enthusiastically. Before I could decline, I was swept up in a tide of people and deposited right next to Bella. Her smile was a masterclass in duplicity. "Alexandra, darling, it's been too long," she cooed, her eyes glinting with unspoken triumph. I forced a smile, keeping my voice even. "Yes, Bella, it's been a while." The evening wore on, a parade of small talk and reminiscing. Bella played the part of the beloved high school idol flawlessly, her every word and gesture seemingly perfect, but I knew better. Beneath that polished exterior was the heart of a viper. As the conversation shifted to life updates, I braced myself. "So, Alexandra, what's new with you? Still with Mark?" Bella asked, her voice honeyed with false concern. The question was a knife, and she wielded it expertly. "No, Bella, Mark and I are no longer together," I replied, keeping my emotions in check. Bella's expression was one of feigned shock. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But I'm sure a catch like you won't be single for long." Her words were a charade, a performance for the audience we had. I could feel the eyes of our classmates on us, sensing the undercurrents of tension. "I'm focusing on myself right now, Bella. Relationships aren't a priority," I said, meeting her gaze steadily. Bella laughed, a sound that set my teeth on edge. "Oh, Alex, always the independent one. But you know what they say, the clock is ticking." Her insinuation was clear, a barbed reminder of societal expectations. I felt a flush of anger but held it back. Now was not the time for an outburst. The night dragged on, a torturous affair of forced smiles and polite applause. As I lay in bed later that night, Bella's words echoed in my mind. She had taken pleasure in my pain, reveling in my discomfort. But as I closed my eyes, a plan began to form. Bella thought she had won, but the game was far from over. I would take my time crafting a revenge that would leave no doubt about who the true victor was. Bella had made a grave mistake in underestimating me, and she would soon learn just how costly that mistake was. The confrontation with Bella at my parents' house was unexpected and explosive. She arrived unannounced, her face twisted in a mix of anger and desperation. "What do you want, Bella?" I asked, my voice cool as I opened the door to her furious knocking. "I want my money, Alexandra. The money you owe me," she spat, her eyes blazing. Confusion swept over me. "Money? What are you talking about? I don't owe you anything." "Don't play dumb. The $600,000 you took from Mark. You're going to pay it back." Bella's accusation was ludicrous, yet her conviction was unsettling. "Bella, you've lost your mind. I never took any money from Mark," I countered, struggling to maintain my composure in the face of her absurd claim. Her laugh was bitter, filled with contempt. "Oh, please. You think I don't know about the debts? Mark told me everything. You bled him dry with your extravagant lifestyle, and now I'm paying for it." The pieces clicked into place, a sickening realization dawning on me. Mark's financial troubles, which he had always been so vague about, were now being twisted into a weapon by Bella. "Bella, listen to yourself. You're being played. I never took any money from Mark. This is his doing, not mine." I tried to reason with her, but my words fell on deaf ears. "Save it, Alexandra. I know your type, always playing the victim. Well, not anymore. You're going to pay back every cent, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are." Bella's threat was laced with venom, her desperation turning to malice. As she stormed off, I stood there, shaken but resolute. This was no longer just about a broken heart or a tarnished friendship. This was war. Over the next few days, I began to gather information, digging into Mark's financial history. It didn't take long to uncover a trail of deceit and manipulation. He was in deep, and he had dragged Bella down with him. Armed with this knowledge, I arranged a meeting with Bella. We met at a quiet park, away from prying eyes. She arrived, her usual confidence replaced with a wary defensiveness. "Bella, I'm not here to fight. I have something you need to see," I said, extending an envelope towards her. She took it hesitantly, her eyes scanning the documents inside. As the truth dawned on her, her face paled. the realization of Mark's betrayal hitting her like a physical blow. This can't be," she stammered, her facade crumbling. "I was never the enemy, Bella. It was Mark all along. He used us both," I said, not without a tinge of sympathy. For a moment there was a flicker of the old Bella, the friend I once knew, but it was quickly snuffed out, replaced by a hardened, bitter shell. "This changes nothing between us, Alexandra. You may not have taken the money, but you're still the reason my life is in shambles," she said, her voice cold. As she walked away, I knew that our bridge was burnt, but I also knew that justice, in its own twisted way, had been served. Bella had been humbled, her illusions shattered, and while it brought me no joy, it was a necessary closure. I walked away from the park, a sense of finality washing over me. The chapter of Bella and Mark was closed, but my story was far from over. Life has a way of coming full circle. Standing in my new home, a modest yet cozy place filled with love and laughter, I couldn't help but reflect on the tumultuous journey that had led me here. I had moved on, found love again with someone who valued the simplicity of life as much as I did. We had a beautiful son, whose innocent laughter was a balm to the scars of my past. Yet the echoes of the past still lingered. News of Bella reached me, a bitter reminder of the storm we had weathered. Her fall from grace was as swift as it was severe. After the truth about Mark's deceit and her own misplaced accusations came to light, her life unraveled. The queen bee of our small town had lost her sting, her followers dissipating as quickly as they had gathered. I heard she moved into a small, run-down apartment, a far cry from the lavish lifestyle she once boasted. Her dreams of a grand wedding and a life of luxury with Mark had crumbled to dust, leaving her with a harsh dose of reality. I didn't take pleasure in her downfall. There was no satisfaction in seeing the once mighty Bella reduced to a shadow of her former self. If anything, it was a somber reminder of how fragile our perceptions of happiness can be. "Mommy, look!" My son's voice pulled me from my reverie, his small hands tugging at my skirt. In his hands he held a drawing, a crude depiction of our family. It was us, him, me, and my partner, all smiles and stick figures. "It's beautiful, honey," I said, scooping him into my arms. His laughter filled the room, a sound so pure and full of life. As I put him to bed that night, I realized that this was what true happiness looked like. It wasn't about status, money, or revenge. It was about the simple moments, the ones that often go unnoticed. Lying in bed, I thought about Bella one last time. Our friendship, once a source of comfort and joy, had become a battlefield of envy and betrayal. But it had also taught me valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and the power of letting go. I hoped in time Bella would find her own path to redemption. Perhaps one day she would understand that the ordinary life she once scorned was, in fact, a life filled with extraordinary moments. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a silent wish for her, a wish for peace, for growth, and for the wisdom to see the beauty in life's simplicity. The story of Bella and me was over, but my story, our story, was just beginning.
I couldn't stand the thought of being stuck with a woman who had a huge pregnant belly, making me raise the child alone. His eyes showed disgust, and a big smile appeared on his face, knowing this day would come. Even though I saw it coming, I quickly went to my room and came back with a document. I handed the divorce papers to Paul. His face twisted in shock. "What the hell? What's this all of a sudden?" he yelled. "Well, it was your idea. Now sign it quickly." "I'll submit it tomorrow," I said firmly. His face turned red with anger as my words hit him hard. "Watch closely. I'll make you regret how you've treated and looked down on me all this time," I declared. "My name is Lisa. I'm a 28-year-old housewife. Until 3 years ago, I worked for a mobile company. I met Paul Walter, my boss, when I was 25. We quickly fell in love and got married. Paul, 4 years older than me, was very reliable, especially when teaching me the job as a newcomer who didn't know much. I was very grateful for Paul's clear instructions. We became friends and often went out to dinner. When he asked me out, I was thrilled, especially since I had never dated anyone before. It's embarrassing to admit, but as a cartoon enthusiast, I was always more interested in 3D characters than real men. However, seeing my high school and college classmates getting married, I started to feel the pressure. When I fell in love with Paul, I secretly promised myself it would be my first and last love. So when we started dating and got married a year later, I was overjoyed. I was extremely happy. Paul was good-looking and popular among our female coworkers. I was proud to be his wife, and many congratulated us, saying things like, "Congratulations," or "I'm jealous, but I wish you happiness." I was filled with joy and couldn't imagine what was coming next. "You're quitting your job," Paul said. "You're married to me now, so you'll quit your job, right?" I informed them yesterday. The day after we registered our marriage, Paul surprised me with this news. "I've always wanted my wife to focus only on household matters. Don't worry, I can support both of us with my income," he added. "But this is so sudden. You never mentioned this before," I replied, shocked. Paul had never talked about me quitting my job before our marriage. I had taken my current job based on my father's recommendation, and leaving without notice wouldn't be right. I wanted to explain this, but Paul's eyes silently warned me not to argue. Instinctively, I kept quiet. "I should have told you, but it's done. Starting tomorrow, you don't need to go to work." "I'll handle the handover," Paul declared. The news about starting tomorrow was so abrupt it made me feel dizzy. However, Paul's words were firm. Since he had been my boss, I couldn't oppose him. Even though I had to leave my job without a proper goodbye, I was determined to make our marriage work. Paul had entrusted me with household duties, and I wanted to meet his expectations. I worked hard at household chores, preparing meals and focusing on Paul's favorites. Although Paul ate without commenting on the taste, I longed for a word of appreciation. After quitting my job, I was no longer recognized by anyone. One day, Paul asked, "Is my jacket clean? I have an important meeting tomorrow." "Yes, of course," I replied, seeing his domineering side with some old-fashioned views. I reminded myself how lucky I was to have married him and tried to meet his expectations. With no personal income, living normally meant relying on Paul. Our relationship often felt more like that of an employer and housemaid than a husband and wife. Our married life was generally smooth until one day when I fell ill and couldn't get out of bed. I felt very tired and weak. I thought I would catch up on housework the next day. Paul entered the bedroom and angrily asked, "What are you doing? Get up and make some food," as he kicked the blanket off me. "I'm sorry, I'm feeling unwell. Can you manage something for yourself today?" I explained, hoping for understanding. Instead of nodding or comforting me, Paul frowned and said, "You don't work, yet you're lying down just because you feel a bit sick." Pathetic. Get up, and kicked me again. The day Paul came home after midnight was the day I chose to share the news. However, when he entered, the smell of alcohol made me nauseous. His face was flushed, and he staggered as he walked. It was surprising how much he had drunk, especially without notifying me. Even though I had prepared dinner, in disbelief I got up from the bed. I never thought he would demand housework from his sick wife. I had never imagined he would be like this before we married. Maybe it was my fault for not seeing it, but it was too much. I found myself doing chores while tears streamed down my face. Several days passed, and my health showed no signs of improvement. Then I realized I had missed my period. Panicking, I rushed to the drugstore to buy a pregnancy test. When I tried it, the result was positive. Overjoyed, tears flowed naturally, and I decided to share the news with Paul when he returned from work, lifting my spirits instantly. The day Paul came home after midnight was the day I chose to share the news. However, when he entered, the smell of alcohol made me nauseous. His face was flushed, and he staggered as he walked. It was surprising how much he had drunk, especially without notifying me. Even though I had prepared dinner, I wanted to share the news of my pregnancy with Paul. Quickly, my excited emotions surged, and I told my intoxicated husband. "I haven't been to the doctor yet, so it's not confirmed," I began eagerly. However, Paul's face darkened as he responded, "A child. What have you done?" His tone was harsh and unlike anything I'd ever heard before. "I don't want a child." "Damn, this is the worst. If you're going to have it, raise it yourself," he said. His harsh words shocked me. He rudely stripped off his clothes and headed to the bathroom. It was unbelievable. I couldn't understand why he would make such irresponsible comments about our baby instead of being happy. The happiness I had felt moments ago was immediately replaced with deep sorrow. Why would he say such things? He had never mentioned not wanting children before. We hadn't even been using contraception, so I naturally thought we both wanted children. As I hung Paul's jacket and was about to take his shirt to the washroom, I noticed something else. A piece of paper had emerged from the pocket of his dress shirt. I could tell it was a receipt because of its texture. At first, I thought it was just a receipt from tonight's gathering, and I was about to throw it away. But then I saw the name of the place. "Is this a motel?" My hand holding the receipt trembled. It was indeed a motel. The shock of this discovery weighed heavily on my heart. Why doesn't Paul love me? Isn't marriage supposed to be between two people who love each other? We've only been married for just over a year. How could this be? I have been lost in imaginary romances for years, never truly engaging in a real relationship. I couldn't accept this harsh reality immediately. However, the idea of Paul cheating began to make sense, and many pieces fell into place. Had Paul been using me from the very beginning of our marriage? Was he genuinely in love with the person he was cheating with, while I was just a convenient servant? All these doubts swirled in my mind. Was that why he reacted so harshly when he learned of my pregnancy? As I grappled with these thoughts, nausea set in, and I became convinced something was wrong. Yes, there's no doubt now. Perhaps the reason he made me quit my job was that his mistress worked there. Everything seemed to make sense now, as if he had married me for stability and not love. The line between reality and my imagination became blurry. Still, there was no denying the heartless words he had thrown at me after learning about my pregnancy. That day, I decided to gather evidence of Paul's infidelity. From then on, his cold behavior towards me was undeniable. It was as if he couldn't forgive me for becoming pregnant. Despite knowing that I was suffering from morning sickness, he would deliberately eat smelly foods near me and nitpick my housework, forcing me to redo tasks. My pregnant body had to endure a lot, and my heart was heavy. Despite this, I continued to investigate his affair. Paul never parted from his cell phone, even taking it with him to the bathroom, making it impossible for me to sneak a peek. When I secretly entered Paul's room, it was neat and tidy with nothing incriminating in sight. He was meticulous at work, and his desk was always in perfect order. I realized it would be challenging to catch him off guard directly. I often checked Paul's pockets for evidence, like receipts, but my investigation was difficult. I thought about hiring a detective, but didn't have the money. While I was deep in thought, I received an unexpected phone call from my father. "Hello, it's me, your dad." "How are you?" he asked. Surprised by his call considering his busy schedule, I replied, "Dad, what's going on? Aren't you busy with work?" "My employees have been doing well, so I'm not that busy," he explained. My father, the CEO of a company in France, was always a workaholic. I didn't have many childhood memories of playing with him, but I respected his dedication to his job. His unexpected call left me curious about the purpose. "So what's happening?" I asked. My father proceeded to reveal a shocking truth. "Is that really true?" I asked in disbelief. "Yes, he's not the type to lie." "I want you to believe me," my father reassured me. Initially in shock and unable to respond, I felt a mix of anger and frustration as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. "Thank you, Dad. I'll do my best," I told him with gratitude before hanging up the phone. My investigation was finally paying off, but the newfound knowledge also stirred up feelings of anger and frustration. Due to the ongoing tension between Paul and me, Paul continued to be distant even though I was pregnant. Each time he acted this way, I harbored a deep hatred towards him. Months passed and our relationship remained strained. Eventually, an event occurred that shattered our life. At last months pregnant, I was always cautious around Paul, living in constant fear. I tried to avoid him, leading a quiet and stifled life. One day, I cooked dinner as usual. When Paul returned home, we sat at the dining table. As I quietly ate, Paul suddenly slammed his fork down. "What is this? It's tasteless," he exclaimed, throwing the food I had prepared onto the floor. Baffled by his outburst, I tried to comprehend the situation. The anger at having the meal I had cooked discarded before me began to build up inside. "I've been contemplating this for some time, but recently you've been complaining about the taste of the meals," I said. Paul criticized my cooking, saying it was tasteless. Since becoming pregnant, I have been using less seasoning to make healthier meals. This was only temporary until the baby was born. If he found the food bland, he could have added some salt himself. Why did he have to throw the meal on the floor? I was about to complain when Paul sneered and said hurtful words. "I don't want a woman with a belly like a monster." "You have to raise the kid by yourself," he said, looking at my swollen belly with malice and a nasty smile. I had always feared this day might come, even though I hoped for a different outcome. Swiftly, I went to my room, retrieved a document, and returned to present it to Paul. "Fine. Here are the divorce papers," I said, thrusting the paired documents in front of him. Paul's face twisted in shock. "What the hell? What's this all of a sudden?" he stammered. "Well, it was your idea. Now sign it quickly." "I'll submit it tomorrow," I responded. In reality, I had been contemplating divorce since I began suspecting Paul's infidelity. However, with a child on the way, I was unsure if I could support myself. But now I had a different plan in mind. My resolve seemed to provoke Paul. His face turned red with anger. "Just watch. I will make you regret every moment you looked down on me and controlled me. Do you think you can survive without me? You have a baby to care for, and you'll regret it," he threatened. My determination was unshaken. "I'll be fine. Don't worry about me," I assured Paul. Perhaps irritated by my confidence, he snatched the divorce papers and began to fill in the blanks. "Here you go. If this is what you wanted, it's yours," he said. "Thank you," I responded. Paul probably didn't think I would actually submit the divorce papers as he handed them over without a fuss. The following day, I promptly submitted the divorce papers and left the house. I knew he would be surprised when he returned from work to find out. After that, I moved to my parents' home, primarily due to my father's return to the UK from France and his suggestion that I stay with them. It was the right decision at the time. I was fed up with my life with Paul and deeply thankful to my father. On the day I left our home, I received 3 calls from Paul, but I ignored all of them. Eventually, he stopped calling. It became clear that I meant very little to him. He was probably content with his mistress and might even remarry soon. I decided to move on from Paul. 5 months passed, and I had a baby who was born safely. I was now living happily with my parents and my baby. While I was enjoying this peaceful life with my family, Paul called again. I ignored his calls at first, but after several persistent attempts, I had no choice but to answer. "Hello, what do you want now?" I said, wary of his tone. "Hey, what's going on? Why were you on that show? And since when were you the daughter of a CEO with millions of dollars?" I never knew that. Paul's voice boomed with surprise and anger. It turned out that Paul had seen a TV show that was broadcasted after I returned to my family home. I had received a request from a TV station thanks to my father's role as the CEO of a renowned global tech company. The show featured the lavish lifestyle of the CEO's family. Producers had come to our house and filmed our family's lifestyle. During the TV show interview, they discussed our family's wealth, mentioning a rough estimate of $25 million. I never imagined Paul would see that show, but the power of television is truly something. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you that I have an asset of $45 million due to an advanced inheritance. That's why I was able to divorce you, I said. Yes, my father informed me about the inheritance, which gave me the confidence to live comfortably even after divorcing you. Upon hearing this, Paul's reaction was immediate, and he was furious. "What? That's dirty. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Half of it is mine, right? Give me the money now," he demanded. I calmly responded, just as I suspected. After seeing the show, all you could think of was getting money from me. Gifts from parents are not included in property distribution. Are you forgetting your own mistakes? Paul was puzzled and asked, "What are you talking about?" I continued, "I'm tired of your anger, Paul. You called me yourself. You should know you can't blame me for what you did. You cheated, didn't you? With your new wife, who's a junior from your company. You started dating her even before our marriage." Paul was clearly shocked by the information I got from my father. I finally had the upper hand. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? My father has many contacts in your company, and one of them informed me about your affair. I've never mentioned it, but I'll be demanding child support." Paul, still in denial, protested, "Stop kidding. Why should I pay child support? It's all because of you, right? You got pregnant on your own and slacked off with household chores. It's all your fault." Hearing Paul blame me without apologizing for his own mistakes was beyond belief. I couldn't believe I was ever married to someone so lacking in common sense. I truly felt it was the right decision to leave him, Paul. "I'm broke, my wife spent all the money I earned, and now I'm in debt," he pleaded. Hearing Paul's painful excuse, I went from anger to sheer disbelief. I never wanted to deal with such an unreasonable person again. With that thought in mind, I firmly gripped my phone. "What are you talking about? Do you even realize how ridiculous you sound? I never want to deal with you ever again. I'll have my lawyer handle the matter of child support. Never call me again, and you will not see the child anymore. Goodbye." "Hey, wait," he called out, but I quickly hung up the phone. Afterwards, I blocked Paul's number and took a deep breath. It's over now, right? I won't get any more calls from Paul. I no longer want him disrupting my peaceful life. Just then, I heard my baby crying from the other room and rushed to soothe the baby. It turned out that he began paying child support every month. According to a former colleague, Paul claimed that the woman he remarried was quite a spendthrift, and he had to cover his current living expenses with debt. It seemed that because of these circumstances, Paul had tried to get a share of my inheritance by calling me. However, Paul didn't get a penny from me. Now his expenses were greater than his income, and he was struggling. Either he felt things were falling apart, or he couldn't stand being looked down upon by his colleagues. What's more, he made the mistake of starting his job search only after leaving his current company. This resulted in him being forced into a life of poverty. Hearing this from a colleague didn't move me at all. I thought he deserved all the hardships. The harsh words and cold demeanor he showed me will never fade from my memory. I sincerely hope he gets what he deserves. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying being a parent. With the help of my parents, my baby is growing up healthy and happy. I feel supported and loved in my family's home, and I no longer have to worry about financial issues. My father, who is a successful CEO, mentioned that he wants to pass on the company to me. This news was both surprising and motivating. I realized that I needed to prepare myself for the responsibilities that would come with running a company. My father has always been a hardworking man, and I wanted to make him proud. So I started learning more about the business, taking on small tasks to understand how things work. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to succeed. Living with my parents has given me a chance to rebuild my life. I feel more confident and ready to face the future. My father's faith in me has inspired me to aim high. He believes in my abilities, and that belief has become a source of strength for me. Every day, I work on balancing my role as a mother and my preparations to take over the company. It's challenging, but I find joy in every moment. My baby's laughter and my parents' support keep me going. I am grateful for this second chance at life, away from the toxic relationship with Paul. I often reflect on my past with Paul. His betrayal and cruelty hurt deeply, but they also taught me valuable lessons about strength and self-worth. I have grown from that experience and emerged stronger. I am now focused on building a bright future for myself and my child. The pain of the past is slowly fading, replaced by the hope and excitement of what lies ahead. I am determined to create a happy and stable life for my child with my family by my side. I know I can achieve anything I set my mind to. Looking back, I see that leaving Paul was the best decision I ever made. It allowed me to find myself again and to discover my true potential. I am no longer the scared, uncertain person I once was. I am a strong, capable woman ready to take on the world. In the end, I hope Paul realizes the consequences of his actions. As for me, I will continue to move forward, embracing the opportunities that come my way and making the most of every day. I am ready for whatever the future holds, confident in my ability to overcome any challenge. Thanks for quitting, Olivia sneered and looked at me. I just silently stared back at her. It's about cutting labor costs. We don't need someone who exploits overtime pay at our company. Jerry seemed pleased too. A week later, I kept getting calls from the company. Hello, I answered. The president spoke. Who exactly are you? I laughed mockingly at his words. I am Nicole Wallace. I'm 57 years old. I've been working at this company for 35 years, since graduating from college. Our company is staffed with administrative scriveners, social insurance labor consultants, and tax accountants handling clerical work for our clients. This is especially popular with company presidents who run their businesses alone. These presidents are busy with sales and lack the time for clerical work, so our company takes care of it for them. I belong to the tax department. I got my bookkeeping and tax accountant qualifications during my school days, and that's why I joined this company. Now I'm managing 41 clients, which keeps me quite busy. Even though a part-timer handles the accounting entries, it's still overwhelming. But I can't show any weakness. Our clients are all long-term relationships, and many of them have had their fair share of hardships. Seeing them face adversity, I feel I can't lose either. So here I am in front of my computer again today. Lately, I've been troubled. Jerry and Olivia have been harassing me. Jerry, 6 years younger than me, is the head of the tax department. He used to be just a regular colleague, but his attitude changed drastically 5 months ago when he got promoted. He used to speak politely, but suddenly he started talking down to me. "Nicole, what are you doing? You've got some nerves slacking off during work hours." He's always either sarcastic or complaining. I'm looking at documents for tax-saving strategies for our clients. When I talked back, Jerry stayed calm. "Just check the manual for that. Don't do anything unnecessary. And if you end up working overtime, don't expect to get paid for it," he said, glaring at me. Unable to respond, I heard Olivia, Jerry's assistant, say, "Nicole, you should work more efficiently. At this rate, you'll never finish." "That's why you're still a regular employee," Olivia laughed mockingly. I was the first to be offered the promotion to department head, but I declined. Becoming the head meant more time for management and less for client interaction. It was an internal offer, so Jerry and Olivia didn't know about it. "I'll make sure to complete my regular duties as well," I managed to say. Still, Jerry and Olivia's harassment continued. "You're increasing overtime again." "What a waste of overtime," Jerry's angry voice echoed today. "Nicole, cut it out. Your constant overtime is dragging down the whole tax department's performance," Olivia sighed. The reason for yesterday's overtime was simple. Jerry had accumulated a month's worth of declaration forms to be filed by the end of the month. After work yesterday, Jerry suddenly said, "Take care of these," and left several client files on my desk. I turned pale when I saw the files. "Wait, these all have deadlines this month, right?" I asked in confusion, but Jerry was already packing up at his desk. "I'm heading out." "Take care," he said, and quickly left the office. "Good luck," Olivia followed Jerry out, laughing mockingly. Unbelievable, I sighed and opened the client files left on my desk. Some of the files were Olivia's responsibility. I sighed even deeper. I knew why Jerry was harassing me. They wanted me to retire quickly. I have more experience and deeper knowledge in taxation than him, so other members of the tax department come to me with their questions instead of Jerry. There are other reasons why everyone avoids Jerry. He looks greasy and unapproachable. The only female employee who stays near him is Olivia. Jerry likes young women. That's probably why he wants me to retire, so the other female employees will rely on him more. It's such shallow thinking. It gives me chills. There's also the fact that he simply doesn't like me. Olivia was harassing me to curry favor with Jerry. Jerry evaluates the performance of the tax department, so she probably wanted to undermine me to get a good evaluation from him anyway. I have to manage these declarations. I have to prepare the tax declarations for my assigned companies, but it looks like I won't finish today's work either. If I try to claim overtime, I'll just get complaints from Jerry and Olivia. So I resigned myself to unpaid overtime. Then one day, I was suddenly called to the president's office. Our company had just had a change of president. The original president's father had been managing the company since it was founded, and he had recently handed it over to his son. The son had always worked at another company and wasn't fully familiar with ours, but he had to take over because his father had suddenly fallen ill. "Excuse me," I said as I entered the president's office. I noticed Jerry and Olivia there, both with unpleasant smirks on their faces. Why are Jerry and the others here? I muttered quietly so no one else could hear. In this tense and strange atmosphere, the president spoke. "Nicole, we'll need you to resign by the end of this month." "Excuse me, what do you mean?" I asked, my mind spinning. "I heard from Jerry and Olivia that you've been overbilling for overtime." Other members of the tax department have only about 16 hours of overtime per month. But Nicole, you're already over 83 hours. Don't you find that odd? Jerry and Olivia have 0 overtime this month. Impressive, right? The president looked at me sternly. The reason my overtime was so high this month was that I was doing Jerry and Olivia's work. But if I said it was Jerry's instructions, it would seem like my own inability to manage time. So I just stated the facts. I haven't overbilled for overtime. It's because I couldn't finish my work within regular hours, I explained. The president sighed deeply. I'm doubtful, but there's no evidence, so I won't pursue it further. However, we can't continue to employ someone who works that slowly. So I want you to resign, the president said firmly. Me being told to leave the company I had dedicated my entire 35-year career to. I was tired too. No matter how much more I did beyond my own work, it was never appreciated. Instead, I ended up having to take on Jerry and Olivia's work as well. Yes, I understand. I'll resign at the end of this month, I replied. I realized I had already said that to the president. I glanced at Jerry and Olivia. They were smiling smugly, looking very pleased. After leaving the president's office with them, Olivia looked at me and said, "Thanks for quitting." Olivia sneered at me. I just silently stared back at her. Jerry also looked down on me the same way. We're cutting labor costs. We don't need someone who exploits overtime pay at our company, Jerry remarked, seeming pleased. While watching the two of them talk so cheerily, I thought about the handover process and started creating the handover documents for all my clients. Of course, I didn't miss saying goodbye to the people I was handing over to. I tried to get an appointment with the president to say goodbye in person. For the presidents I couldn't meet, I sent letters and informed them of my successor. A week after I resigned, I was relaxing at home. I had been busy with the handover until my resignation and had been extremely busy even before that. A little relaxation shouldn't be a problem. As I was thinking this, my mobile phone rang. When I checked the call, it was from the company. What could they want now? I made sure to take care of the social insurance procedures. I didn't answer the phone, but then the company called several more times. In fact, I had also received several calls from Jerry and Olivia's personal mobile phones. Maybe they thought I'd answer if it was from the company. Reluctantly, I decided to answer. Hello. Nicole, it's a mess right now, the president said as soon as I answered. Who exactly are you? I laughed mockingly at his words. Who am I? Just an unemployed lady. I've resigned from the company, and I'm nothing else. Right then, the president spoke urgently. Since you left, we've had 55 calls to stop transactions with the company. Please come back immediately. The president said his piece and hung up. He must be really panicked. I guess I have no choice. I got up reluctantly and headed to the company. As soon as I arrived, Jerry and Olivia were waiting. Both of their faces were pale, and they had dark circles under their eyes. What's wrong with both of you? I asked, surprised at their drastic change in appearance. Jerry glared at me and said, "Since you left, we've been getting calls one after another to stop transactions. Not just from your clients, but from prospective companies we were planning to introduce. What did you do?" Olivia also looked at me with suspicion. I never thought Nicole would do something so underhanded. I'm truly disillusioned. The reason they both looked so haggard was probably due to dealing with the cancellations. I hadn't done anything to the clients, but I had a guess why they were canceling their transactions. Well, the cancellations might be unavoidable this time, I muttered. Jerry yelled, "So you did do something, didn't you? Get to the president's office now." He then took me to the president's office. "President, I brought her," Jerry declared forcefully as he opened the door. Olivia followed in a hurry. "Oh, I'd been waiting," the president said, looking me in the eyes. "Jerry accused me like I was the culprit. It appears that Neil was involved in the cessation of transactions with our clients. We should not only make her responsible, but also sue her for damages," Olivia argued vehemently, though her language was careful in front of the president. The president ignored them and asked, "Why did so many companies stop transactions after you left?" I took a deep breath and answered clearly, "Don't you understand? Our clients don't need us to manage their taxes. There are tax accountant firms that do it cheaper, yet they continued with us because I was here." Jerry snapped at me. "What's with that attitude towards the president? And you think you're worth that much?" Olivia taunted, "There's no way. It has to be Nicole." The president looked serious. "Jerry and Olivia work based on the manual, optimizing operations. But I do more than that. I offer tax-saving strategies tailored to our clients' situations. Uniform responses don't always serve the client's best interests. Many clients preferred my approach and stayed because of it." Jerry got angry. "How can we afford to give such detailed attention to each case? It takes too much time." "That's right. It's inefficient," Olivia strongly agreed. The president sighed deeply and said, "Actually, I just got a call from Dad, the former president. Some of the clients who stopped transactions had gone directly to him to negotiate about Nicole." I was surprised to hear this. I had expected the clients to go that far for me. Dad said that the tax department was viable because of Nicole. She not only managed her clients, but also supported her colleagues' clients, and she has knowledge that Jerry can't match. Dad also said that if Nicole hadn't declined, she would have been in a higher position than a department head by now. The president spoke with a pained expression. No way." Olivia looked shocked. She probably couldn't believe I might have been her boss. The president continued, "I'm really sorry for making you resign. But can we cancel your resignation, Nicole? You're needed at our company." I was honestly happy about the president's changed opinion, but I couldn't accept it. Then Jerry interrupted, "President, what do you mean she's better than me?" I can't accept this. Jerry was visibly upset. Olivia also protested. "Jerry is a wonderful boss who cares for his subordinates, and yet you choose Nicole over him. That's unacceptable." The president looked sternly at them. "Actually, since Nicole resigned, we've been receiving numerous complaints from the tax department. You two seem to have been pushing your work onto others, haven't you?" "What? Why would you say that?" Jerry's face turned pale. The president started speaking with a look of disgust. "I've heard from the employees. Jerry, you've been pushing the preparation of your clients' declaration forms onto your subordinates, haven't you? Including Olivia's work for many clients." Next to Jerry, who was getting paler, Olivia trembled when her name was mentioned. "There was a leak saying you've been pushing your work onto Nicole until she resigned. Jerry, you are calling her a salary thief. It seems the roles are reversed, aren't they?" The president spoke with a sigh. "No, that's not true." Jerry was visibly flustered, unable to come up with an excuse. Observing Jerry and Olivia turning pale together, the president continued, "Also, there was a leak that you two are in a relationship. You are often seen leaving work together. But Jerry, you're married, aren't you?" The president glared at Jerry and Olivia. I was just mentoring Olivia as her superior, nothing inappropriate. Jerry struggled to find the words when the president produced several receipts. These are receipts queried by the accounting department. These dining expenses filed by Jerry. Who were they with? Certainly not with clients, right? Jerry was sweating profusely, unable to speak. Olivia's face turned ghostly pale. "Jerry and Olivia, you've neglected your duty and inflated expense claims. Plus, you're having an affair in the office despite being married, according to company policy. I'm terminating your employment as of today, the president told them calmly and straightforwardly. Jerry and Olivia tried to resist. Please wait. I'll retract the receipt claims. Just don't fire me. I have a family. Jerry desperately tried to reverse his firing. Olivia did the same. Please, I don't want to be fired. I'll apologize to Nicole and the others for dumping work on them. Olivia was on the verge of tears, realizing the severity of being fired for neglecting work and having an affair with a supervisor. She must have been worried about her reputation. I advised Jerry and Olivia, why don't you just stop resisting? It's undignified. Jerry glared at me. Shut up. What would a single person like you understand? I sighed and said, Jerry, you were the one who got me fired. It's just karma. What goes around comes around. Why don't you take some responsibility and reflect a bit, damn it? Jerry looked frustrated. Olivia bit her lip. I haven't reported this yet, but there's more to Jerry and Olivia's misconduct. Should I share more details? I asked the president with a smile. Jerry and Olivia's behavior was well known in the tax department. Their stories had reached me, whether I liked it or not. No, please don't. Nicole stopped. Both were friends frantically trying to stop me. I gave them an ultimatum. Wrongdoings eventually come to light. It would be better for you to face reality before it gets worse. At my words, both of them collapsed to their knees. Ultimately, Jerry and Olivia were fired on the spot. I revealed their misdeeds afterward. These included Jerry faking business trips to go out with Olivia for days and harassing employees they disliked into quitting. They repeatedly reprimanded and pressured employees out of my sight and suddenly assigned work with tight deadlines. The employees who resigned asked me to keep quiet, but now they are happily working at other companies, so I decided it was okay to speak up. The president was furious at my revelation. He expressed his anger about cutting their final salary and also planned to thoroughly investigate past inflated expense claims. Jerry was begging the president, tears in his eyes, please don't cut my salary. What will I tell my family if they find out? Eventually, Jerry and Olivia's affair was exposed to Jerry's wife, and Jerry ended up getting divorced. The two are now facing claims for compensation in the divorce lawsuit. I know this because for some reason, Jerry contacted me. Please, can you persuade the president to reconsider the firing? Olivia and I are in a real bind now. Apparently, Jerry and Olivia are struggling to find new jobs. The tax industry is somewhat insular. If you commit too many misdeeds, word spreads quickly through the industry's network. That's why no one is willing to hire Jerry and Olivia. They need money for the divorce compensation and living expenses, so now they're working day labor at construction sites. People used to office work suddenly doing hard labor outdoors must be tough. Olivia often calls me, crying. Nicole, please help. I just wanted a raise and a better life. I never really liked Jerry, and this situation is unbearable, Olivia would say, crying. However, Jerry and Olivia's predicament is their own doing. Many people, including myself, have been victims of their actions. So I told Olivia, this is all your own fault, Olivia. You can't undo what's been done. It will be hard to return to the same path. You're just going to have to deal with the hardships. No way. Olivia cried out in despair. This was the outcome of Olivia's actions. I hope she continues to regret her actions in the future. As for me, I'm still enjoying a relaxed lifestyle away from work. The president has been begging me to return, but I have declined. After being told to resign once, I don't think I'll go back. Sometimes I help out at a friend's tax office to earn a bit of money. Maybe once things settle down, I'll start my own office. In my own office, no one can complain about my working style. I can fully dedicate myself to my clients as a tax accountant. I want to be on equal footing with my clients, not as a teacher, but as part of the service industry. My second life has just begun. I'm looking forward to delving into what I want to do next. Olivia's tears and pleas for help continued to come. "Nickel, please help. I just wanted a better life," she would cry. But her words didn't move me. The memory of the stress and harassment I endured because of her and Jerry was still fresh in my mind. "Olivia, you made your bed, and now you have to lie in it," I would tell her. "You can't expect sympathy when you showed none to others." "But it's so hard," Olivia would sob. "I never imagined it would turn out like this." "Actions have consequences," I replied. "You and Jerry brought this on yourselves. You can't go back and undo it. Now you have to face the results of what you've done." Olivia's cries of despair were the echoes of her own choices. It was a harsh lesson, but one she needed to learn. As for me, I found peace in my new routine. Helping out at my friend's tax office was rewarding. I enjoyed the work without the toxic atmosphere Jerry and Olivia had created. The president's requests for me to return became more frequent. "Please come back, Nicole, we need you," he would say. "I'm sorry, but I can't return," I would reply each time. "I appreciate the offer, but I've moved on." Starting my own office became a clearer goal each day. In my own space, I would set the rules. No more dealing with unfair treatment or office politics. I would focus on providing the best service to my clients, building relationships based on trust and respect. In this new chapter of my life, I could finally breathe. I felt lighter, free from the burdens of the past. My days were filled with purpose, and my nights were peaceful, free from the anxiety that had once plagued me. Looking forward, I saw endless possibilities. I could expand my skills, take on new challenges, and build something of my own. My second life was just beginning, and I was excited about the future. No longer weighed down by the negativity of my old job, I could now fully embrace the opportunities ahead as I planned my new business. I remembered the support and trust my clients had shown me. They were the reason I continued in this field. Their belief in my abilities was the foundation of my new venture. With them in mind, I knew I would succeed. My journey had been tough, but it had made me strong. Stronger now, I was ready to turn the page and start a new chapter with renewed energy and a clear vision. I looked forward to what was to come. My past experiences had taught me valuable lessons, and I was eager to apply them in my new role. In the end, Olivia and Jerry's downfall served as a reminder of the importance of integrity and respect in the workplace. Their story was a cautionary tale, one that reinforced my commitment to building a positive and supportive environment in my own office. As I moved forward, I carried with me the knowledge that I could overcome any obstacle. My resilience and determination had brought me this far, and they would continue to guide me in the future. My second life was not just a continuation of the old, but a new beginning full of promise and potential. My son's fiancé mocked me when we met for the first time. "Your dad only finished middle school. Seriously, can you even get a job with such low qualifications?" She laughed heartily. Her father joined in. "I can't believe he's an unemployed high school dropout." They belittled me, and to make things worse, they served food only for themselves, excluding me. The fiancé's mother said with a big smile, "I prepare meals only for my family." I've never seen someone treated so badly during a meeting between two families. I decided to get back at the 5 rude people, including my son, and told them to say whatever they wanted before storming out of the restaurant. My name is Eric Roberts. I just turned 59 this year, and I have a 24-year-old son named Larry. But my relationship with my son is strained, and he never comes to my house. I've often regretted how I raised him, as this led to the situation we're in now. I lost my beloved wife when Larry was still in elementary school. My wife had been frail since childhood, and she passed away at the young age of 47. At my wife's funeral, I didn't care about the judgmental looks from relatives. I sobbed like a little kid. Larry was more composed, telling me, "Dad, it's sad, but let's say our goodbyes to Mom." But my grief only lasted during the funeral. Back then, I was running a real estate business I had inherited from my father. The day after my wife's funeral, I woke up to phone calls from clients. That's right, I had loyal clients to take care of, and I had to raise Larry on my own. Those phone calls snapped me out of my grief, and I headed to my office. At the same time, I took part in school events and PT meetings, filling the role my wife had played all by myself. There's no way my clumsy self could juggle work and school events perfectly on my own. I quickly gave up and decided to temporarily close my business. I handed over my clients to another real estate agency so I could spend time with Larry. But when I went to his school, Larry glared at me and said, "Dad, I told you not to come." He even complained, "Don't tell anyone near my dad." Without saying whose parent I was or why I was at the school, I would just be some stranger. Even today, I'm wearing a name tag that says Roberts as I participate in PTA activities. I couldn't understand why my son suddenly started giving me the cold shoulder, but it didn't take long for the truth to come out. "Hey, isn't that your dad? What's he doing at school on a weekday? Does he have nothing better to do?" One classmate said, "My mom said that after your mom passed away, your dad became jobless, right?" Larry remained silent and looked down as his classmates taunted him. I quickly rushed over and told them, "I'm just taking some time off work. It's like your summer or winter break." But this only made things worse for Larry. "Your dad's just pretending to be on break. Your family's poor. I'll share my bread from lunch with you," one kid said. Larry grew more and more resentful, and his classmates kept making fun of him. Despite knowing my son was being ridiculed, all I could do was look the other way. I can't remember how many times I cried alone because of how pathetic I felt. Soon, when Larry entered middle school, he started hanging out with delinquents. He would sleep over at friends' houses and hang out at gas station parking lots until late at night. Back in the day, cell phones weren't very common, and it was rare for a middle schooler to have one. Larry started coming home less and less, and I had no clue where he was or what he was doing. All I could do was apologize when I got calls from the school saying there had been a complaint from a nearby gas station. Whenever I went to Larry's school, Larry and his rowdy classmates would call me names like "good for nothing" and "bottom of the barrel" while throwing empty cans at me. Larry had become more violent since entering middle school, and I was scared to even talk to him, not knowing what he might do. I wish I had handled things better when he was still in elementary school. But what was the right way for a parent to deal with a child's bad behavior? I had no idea how to communicate with a teenager and was utterly confused. He skipped school without caring and even ran away during classes. His grades were rock bottom. At a parent-teacher conference, they told me about a private high school where even Larry could get in, and I was relieved. I was glad there was a high school he could go to. I thought maybe he'd calm down a bit after going to high school. Just as I hoped, after starting high school, Larry began to take his classes seriously. He studied hard, started scoring a bit above average on tests, and even made it to college. But his disdain for me remained the same. Even after going to high school, he continued to bounce from one friend's house to another, never stopping by home. After getting into college, he started living alone in a dorm and paid his tuition by working part-time. He was living independently, which was commendable, but he was cold as ice towards me. Even after he started working, he never once came home. Then out of the blue, when Larry was about 24, he called me. He said, "I got someone I want to marry." Then he goes, "Next Sunday at 3:00 p.m., we're meeting up at a fancy restaurant, so be there," and lets me know the plans he made without even asking about my availability. I was like, hold on, this is too sudden. But when I got mad, he just said, "If you can't make it, don't bother," and hung up the phone with his cold attitude. I had mixed feelings, but he's my only son, so for his sake, I went to the fancy restaurant at the time he told me to. When I got to the restaurant, her folks were already there, and they were like, "Who are you?" All rude. I was like, you call me out of the blue and then ask who I am. Come on, but even though I was fuming, her folks just said, "No, we didn't call you." And they were just as cold as my son. Now my son Larry was standing there smirking. This guy was up to something. Still not sure I trusted what was happening, I headed inside the restaurant. There was no talk about Larry or his partner Kelly. Instead, I was the center of their attention, and they treated me like an intruder. Then Larry started saying, "This guy here dropped out of high school and worked, but after Mom passed, he's just been loafing around, telling Kelly and her folks." I was like, "Kay, this isn't the time or place." But he didn't care. Then to top it all off, Kelly burst out laughing, saying, "For real? Can a person even get hired with just a middle school education?" Kelly's dad added, "Wow, raised by a high school dropout and layabout. But you're here with a college degree and a job at a big company. You took your old man as what not to be, huh?" Praising Larry. I was too tired to argue and was about to say what you want, I'm out of here. But then a waiter came in from behind me with the food. "Sorry for the wait," he said. Oh right, the food hadn't even come yet. I was so upset I forgot. I tried to calm down, thought I'd just eat what was in front of me and leave. But the food that got brought out was only for Larry, Kelly, and Kelly's parents. The waiter said, "I'm sorry, we had a reservation for 5, giving me this look." Kelly's mom said, "Yes, that's correct. He's not our family, so don't mind him," giving the waiter a sweet smile. The waiter looked all kinds of uncomfortable and backed out. Just as I was about to lose it, Kelly's dad cut me off. He said, "We don't want anything to do with some deadbeat high school dropout. Our family and relatives are all bank employees, doctors, working at major companies. You don't belong here. Please leave." That was enough. I said, "Is education and job history all you care about? Aren't you folks a bit off your rockers?" And got up to leave. To that, Kelly's dad said, "I work at Bank of New York Mellon, where education and job history really matter for clients' trust. But of course, a layabout like you wouldn't know." I said, "Oh my, you work at Bank of New York Mellon, huh? That's quite impressive," and walked out. I said that as I was leaving, but they didn't hear me. The next day, I paid a visit to Bank of New York Mellon, where Kelly's dad works. Being called a deadbeat by my son, his classmates, and my son's fiancée and her family, I must admit I'm not actually a deadbeat. After my wife passed away, I temporarily closed my real estate business. Let me clarify, it was just a temporary closure. I didn't shut it down for good. After my wife's passing, I switched my business to online management so I could prioritize my son's school events and PTA meetings. When I had a physical store, most of my clients were neighbors. But after switching to online management, I could serve customers from all over the country, like people living in small towns about an hour's drive from the nearest train station, and even Americans living abroad. I started getting more consultations about renting and buying properties from these folks. Thanks to the internet, I could expand my property portfolio and cater to a broader clientele. Running a real estate business online made things possible that seemed like a dream. Additionally, I was quite active in stocks and investments as a hobby. Currently, I have $70 million deposited in Bank of New York Mellon, where Kelly's dad works. Upon arriving at the bank, I promptly requested to speak with the branch manager and informed him about everything that happened the day before. I said, I was told by one of your employees that this bank operates on trust built on educational background and work history. So I've lost all trust in this bank because of that statement. Could you please proceed with the account closure? The branch manager kept apologizing profusely and finally explained the account closure process with a face on the verge of tears. Oh, I almost forgot about something important. There's this troublemaker who has not paid the rent for the apartment I own for 3 years. I had been letting it slide, thinking he's my son, but no more. I mailed my son a notice demanding 3 years' worth of rent. 5 days later, Kelly's dad and my bonehead son came storming into my house. Why did you rat me out to the branch manager? That was underhanded, Dad. What's the deal with that notice? If you're the manager, cover for me. I sighed and said, I lost trust in the bank after learning about your practice of judging clients based on education and work history. Are you panicking just because of what one person said? Do you have something to hide? And Larry, just because we're family doesn't mean you can skip paying rent. Pay your own rent, Kelly's dad shouted. Because you went around stirring the pot, I got a bunch of complaints from my other clients. My boss chewed me out because of what you did. The nerve. Oh no, I didn't stir the pot. I just shared this story as casual conversation with my relatives and clients. I didn't tell them to close their accounts, I said with a smile. My son snapped at me, What clients, Dad? You're just a deadbeat, aren't you? Do you think a deadbeat could afford to build a huge house like this in such a prime location and still maintain this lifestyle? I even did some renovations recently, I replied. My son looked baffled and said, Huh. What's that? Did you go into debt or something? I'm really fed up with you. I took a break from my real estate job for a while and then switched to running an online business, which I'm still doing. How many times do I have to tell you I'm not a bum? I said. My son turned pale and said, What? I had no clue. I thought you were just working part-time. Kelly's dad started yelling, You're a real piece of work, keeping your occupation secret even from your own son. Annoyed, I said, Say whatever you want, and closed the front door. Outside, I heard them shouting, You've ruined my reputation. I'm going to sue you. I can't believe I've been duped by my old man for this long. I'm not going to let him do this to me. They were making a ruckus, but after about 5 minutes of shouting, they seemed to get exhausted, and it got quiet. Once they realized that shouting was meaningless, I figured they wouldn't bother coming around here again. I let out a sigh of relief and went to make myself a cup of coffee. Just then, I heard my son's voice outside again. You big fat liar. What are you still doing here? I said as I looked out the window to see Kelly's dad and my son spray painting my front door. You've got to be kidding me. What are they up to now? Just as I was about to go outside and give them a piece of my mind, I heard a police siren getting closer. Could it be that someone in the neighborhood called the cops? My hunch was right. When I went outside, the 3 of them were being detained by the police who had shown up because of a neighbor's complaint. There he is, that big fat liar. I lost all my credibility at work because of him, they shouted. The police calmly loaded them into the patrol car, saying, all right, we'll take it from here. Then one of the officers, who seemed to have just noticed me, approached with a strangely cheerful expression. "Sir, would you please come with us to give your statement?" "Why me?" I thought, but I guess I'm the victim here. I'm going to spill the beans on all their shenanigans. When we got to the police station, I showed the cops a video from my phone. It was footage from the security camera I installed at my front door. The camera had recorded all the yelling and antics. "What a great piece of evidence," the officer exclaimed with a sparkle in his eye, and my questioning was over in a jiffy. My son and Kelly's dad were given a stern warning by the police and had to sign a restraining order to keep their distance from me. It turns out the whole neighborhood had witnessed their crazy behavior. One of my son's coworkers, who lives nearby, had been blabbering about it at the office. Hey, you won't believe it, but Larry was caught spray painting his own father's house and got hauled off by the cops. I was so shocked I recorded the whole thing. My son became the talk of the town at his workplace and with clients, and his boss ended up demoting him. I went to report the incident to Bank of New York Mellon again, where Kelly's dad worked. When I showed the manager the security camera footage on my phone, his face turned white as a sheet. I heard that Kelly's dad finally got fired, and naturally she called off the engagement with Larry. Larry and Kelly's family both fled far away to a rural area. Apparently, Kelly's parents even came to work part-time at the gas station in the sticks run by my brother. They were no good and couldn't get the hang of stocking shelves, no matter how many times they tried. I showed them and had to give them the boot right away. Word spread quickly, and nearby gas stations and farmers did the same. According to my brother, Kelly's parents can't seem to land a steady job and are bouncing from one gig to another at gas stations and farms. Furthermore, I heard that Kelly showered her boyfriends, including my son, with expensive gifts like watches, and she got into debt because of that. The little money her parents make from their part-time jobs apparently goes toward paying off Kelly's debts. It's a mystery how they're making ends meet. It's been 6 years since then, and my son is now 30. It seems like he's changed for the better after being treated with kindness from folks in the small town he moved to. He came to me a couple of times and apologized sincerely. He said, "I was naive and immature. I didn't even try to understand your job and just labeled you as a good-for-nothing. I can't apologize enough for how much I regret it." Seeing the change in my son's attitude, I decided to let him move in with me. Now he's working at a company near my place, and little by little, he's helping me out with my work too. But don't get me wrong, he's still inexperienced, and I don't trust him completely. I'm hesitant to hand over all my work to him, but I'm going to observe his behavior and attitude towards work and make decisions accordingly. If he proves he's really turned his life around, I might consider handing over the rest of my business. But if I told him that, he might get too excited and say, for real. I'll hand in my 1 week's notice tomorrow and do something impulsive. I'm living with my son, holding on to the hope that one day I'll feel confident enough to trust him with everything. After the incident with the police, the news about Larry and Kelly's dad spread quickly. The neighborhood couldn't stop talking about it. One of Larry's coworkers who lives nearby blabbered about it at the office, saying, "Hey, you won't believe it, but Larry was caught spray painting his own father's house and got hauled off by the cops." I was so shocked I recorded the whole thing. Because of this, my son became the talk of the town at his workplace, and his boss ended up demoting him. I went to report the incident to Bank of New York Mellon again, where Kelly's dad worked. When I showed the manager the security camera footage on my phone, his face turned white as a sheet. He was speechless. I heard that Kelly's dad finally got fired, and naturally, she called off the engagement with Larry. Larry and Kelly's family both fled far away to a rural area. Apparently, Kelly's parents even came to work part-time at a gas station run by my brother. They were no good and couldn't get the hang of stocking shelves, no matter how many times they tried. My brother said they were a complete disaster, always messing up and causing trouble. Despite all this, my focus remained on my son. It's been a long road, but I believe he's starting to understand the importance of hard work and responsibility. He's apologized for his past behavior and seems genuinely remorseful. I've told him that actions speak louder than words, and I'm watching to see if his actions match his apologies. Living with him again has been challenging, but it's also been a chance for us to rebuild our relationship. I see glimpses of the man he could become, and it gives me hope. I haven't decided yet whether I'll hand over my business to him, but I'm giving him a chance to prove himself. If he shows he can be responsible and trustworthy, then maybe, just maybe, I'll consider it. But for now, I'm taking it 2 days at a time, hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. My name is Emma, and I'm a 20-year-old university student living in New York. I grew up in a family that went through its share of changes. My parents got divorced when I was 14, and I've lived with my mom ever since. Things got even tougher last year when my dad, who I was very close to, passed away from cancer. He left me a significant amount of money in his will, but I could only access it when I turned 20. This year, I reached that milestone, and not long after, something pretty unbelievable happened. One afternoon, my stepdad Justin, who is in his mid-30s and has been married to my mom for the last 6 years, asked to talk to me. Our relationship has always been a bit strained. I try to keep things peaceful, but he's not always been the kindest to me. He started the conversation with a heavy topic. He suggested that I give the money my dad left me to my stepbrother Michael to help with his college expenses. According to Justin, Michael needed the money more for his education, and it seemed only fair to him that I help out. I was taken aback by his request. The idea of giving away the money my dad left for me felt wrong. I tried to explain to Justin that this inheritance was something my dad intended for me, and it felt important to keep it for my future. But Justin didn't see my point of view. He insisted that I didn't need the money and that Michael's needs were greater. Despite his pressure, I stood my ground. I calmly explained to Justin that saying no wasn't about disrespect. It was about honoring my dad's wishes and maintaining personal boundaries. Justin got quite upset at my refusal and tried to intimidate me, but I remained firm in my decision. It was a challenging conversation, but it was important for me to speak up for what I felt was right. I stood firm, making it clear that if Justin was upset by my refusal, he might want to reconsider his approach. Justin, remember you're part of this household too, so let's try to keep things respectful, I suggested, but it seemed like a peaceful resolution wasn't in the cards. I ended the conversation there, leaving before he had the chance to respond. Justin's reaction wasn't a shock to me, given his past behavior. I had a hunch he might try to claim the inheritance money for himself at some point. You might wonder about my mom's role in all of this. Well, that's a complex issue. My mom, for reasons I can't fully understand, always seems to overlook Justin's negative traits. She's deeply in love with him, almost to the point of blindness, and I didn't want to shatter her perception by constantly clashing with Justin. So I've tried to maintain peace for her sake. It's odd considering I'm one of the youngest in the house, yet often I find myself having to be the most responsible. At the time of this ordeal, my mom Mary was out of town, which is why she wasn't around to intervene. Had she been there, she would have been livid. Justin knew he had a window of opportunity with her away, underestimating my resolve in the process. As I walked away from our heated discussion, Justin followed, berating me and labeling me a terrible sister for not wanting to hand over the inheritance to Michael. But it wasn't about not wanting to help. It was about the principle of the matter. Justin and Michael unfortunately seemed to follow the like father, like son trope, acting more like schemers from a cartoon than family members. Their antics could remind someone of the characters Pinky and the Brain, with their roles in this scenario up for debate. As I tried to leave the argument behind, Justin wasn't done. He insisted I listen and comply with his demands, bringing Michael into the conversation to reinforce his point. Michael sleepily joined in, confused about the details, until Justin prompted him about the important reason behind their demand for the money. A supposed business venture that suddenly became about Michael's university tuition. Their story was inconsistent, with Justin scrambling to justify their claim to my inheritance, first mentioning a business, then switching to tuition. It was clear their motives were murky at best, relying on manipulation rather than any real need or right to the money my dad left me. "I just woke up, so I'm a bit foggy," Michael mumbled, trying to piece together his story. "Right, the university. I've been thinking about going, and I need the money for that." "So yeah, I need it." His attempt to claim the inheritance for his education was unconvincing at best. I couldn't help but respond with a firm no, prompting a flurry of protests from both him and Justin. "Why not Emma? He's clear about what he wants," Justin pressed, insisting the matter was non-negotiable and that they were entitled to the money. "We'll just have to see about that," I replied, the air growing thick with tension. Justin's antics were usually limited to harmless pranks, but this new scheme to manipulate me out of my inheritance marked a departure into outright selfishness and immaturity. I decided to hold off on telling my mom for the time being, preferring to handle the situation on my own, especially after uncovering more about their dubious intentions. "Emma, stop being childish. It's time to act like an adult and do what's right," Justin lectured, suggesting that the adult thing to do was to hand over my inheritance. His logic was baffling. "And what you think is the right thing is to give away my inheritance on your say-so," I countered. His plea to keep this from my mom raised my suspicions further. Why shouldn't I tell her? She has every right to know what's happening in her own house. Justin's desperation not to involve my mom, paired with his uncharacteristically stern tone, only fueled my resolve. Something was definitely amiss, particularly with the so-called business venture Michael had mentioned earlier. It was clear they underestimated my awareness of their tactics, and Justin's opposition to me sharing anything with my mom was a red flag. I reached out to my mom at the first opportunity. "Hey Mom, how's everything with you?" I began, trying to gauge her mood. "I'm all right, dear. What about you?" she responded. I hesitated, knowing what I was about to divulge could cause a stir. "Not great, Mom. Something's up with Justin and Michael. Justin in particular. He's been acting really strange." My mom's response was to caution me against overthinking things. "Oh, Emma, don't let your imagination get the better of you." But it was too late for reassurances. The pieces were too aligned, pointing to something more than just a misunderstanding or paranoia on my part. Understanding my mom's reluctance to believe the unsettling truth about Justin, I pressed on, determined to shed light on the situation. "Mom, I get that you have feelings for him, but Justin crossed a line. He didn't just ask for the inheritance money. He demanded it for Michael, claiming it was for education purposes. There's something off about this whole thing, and he even became aggressive when I mentioned bringing it up to you." I explained, my resolve hardened despite her skepticism. My mom hesitated, torn by her emotions and the troubling accusations against the man she cared for. "I'm struggling to grasp this, Emma. I feel like we need more evidence to make sense of it all. Don't worry, Mom. I'll find the proof we need, I assured her, even though she wasn't entirely convinced. The idea that Justin had somehow bewitched her with his manipulations nagged at me, but I knew I needed solid evidence to reveal the true nature of his intentions. Later that night, I found myself scanning the family computer for any clues that could unravel the mystery of Justin's behavior. Fortune seemed to be on my side when I discovered that Justin had carelessly left his email account open. What I found was a revelation. Emails exchanged between Justin and a woman named Martha painted a clear picture of deceit. These messages were far from innocent, hinting strongly at an affair. But it was the content discussing plans for a divorce and a future together, fueled by an influx of money from a dubious business venture, that caught my attention. Justin may have been cautious not to detail any illegal activities, but his indiscretion and betrayal were blatant. Armed with this information and determined to uncover more, I decided to approach Michael, hoping he might inadvertently reveal more about their plans. I initiated a casual conversation with him, slyly turning on my phone's recorder to capture our exchange. "Hey, Michael," I greeted him, fighting to sound cheerful. "Hello, Emma," he replied, seemingly in a good mood. "You seem happy today." "Why not? It's a beautiful day," I said, steering the conversation in hopes of discovering more about Justin's schemes and their impact on my family. I approached Michael with a sense of curiosity, pretending to consider their request for the inheritance money. "I've been thinking a lot about what you and Justin mentioned. I'm actually considering giving you the money for your college," I told him, watching his reaction closely. "Really? That's amazing. I'll let him know right away," Michael said, his excitement palpable. "Hold on, not so quickly. Before anything happens, I need to confirm something. This money is specifically for your college tuition, correct?" I pressed on, trying to gauge his sincerity. "Yes, of course, for my college tuition." Michael stuttered a bit, perhaps caught off guard by my questioning. "And you're sure about this? What about Martha? Is she serious about it too?" I prodded, dropping the name I had discovered in Justin's emails. "Martha? Who's Martha?" Michael faltered, a clear sign of confusion crossing his face. "She's a student advisor at the college," he quickly covered up, but it was too late. Unbeknownst to us, Justin had silently entered the room, and his presence was intimidating. "I don't appreciate you questioning my son like this," he interjected, his tone stern. "I was merely inquiring about the intended use of my inheritance. After all, if I'm considering giving it away, I'd like to know it's for a good reason," I explained, trying to maintain my composure. Justin's retort was sharp. "Once you give money away, it's no longer yours to worry about. It's not your business anymore." The audacity of his statement took me aback, especially considering his next threat. "You're not just thinking about giving us the money. You will give it to us, or you'll find yourself out of this house." Michael looked as shocked as I felt by his father's escalation. "Dad, this isn't what we agreed on," he began, only to be cut off by Justin, asserting his authority in a domineering tone, threatening my place in the home if I didn't comply with his demands. Choosing silence as my response, I retreated to my room, all the while recording the entire confrontation. Justin was unaware that his true colors were being captured for posterity. Once safe in my room, I began compiling all the evidence I had against him. It felt like I was a detective in one of those crime shows, piecing together the puzzle. I had audio recordings and email screenshots, all pointing to Justin's deceitful behavior and his affair with Martha. Feeling the weight of my findings, I decided it was time to bring my mom into the loop. "Hello, Mom," I started, my voice laced with urgency. "Hey, sweetheart, how are you?" She responded, unaware of the storm brewing. "Mom, are you sitting down? I have something important to tell you, and it's not easy," I said, preparing her for the revelations that were to come. Breaking the news to my mom was tough. I started by telling her about the unsettling discoveries I had made. Initially, she found it hard to believe, but when I played the audio recording of my conversation with Justin, her denial began to fade, replaced by a mixture of shock and heartbreak. Why would he do such things? Why be so cruel? She questioned, her voice breaking with every word. It's hard to say, but we're dealing with someone who doesn't have our best interests at heart. I replied gently, trying to be as supportive as I could despite the harsh reality. I hate to say it, but he's not the person we thought he was. Hearing the truth straight from the recording was a turning point for her. This is unacceptable. I can't believe I wasn't here to protect you from them, she said, determination taking over her initial shock. Stay put. I'm coming back immediately. And yes, I locked my door, I reassured her. My mom's protective instincts kicked in full force. She was ready to confront Justin and ensure he regretted his actions. He's going to realize he picked the wrong family to mess with, she said, a fierce resolve in her voice. When she arrived, it was a moment filled with mixed emotions. We hugged tightly, sharing tears over the betrayal and the tough decisions that lay ahead. Yet there was also a sense of relief and unity. Together, we spent hours devising a plan, ready to face the ordeal as a team. In the days that followed, Justin was perplexed by my mom's unexpected return and her cold demeanor towards him. He tried to play it off with a veneer of cheerfulness, likely hoping to charm his way out of any suspicions. But my mom was unmoved. She saw right through his act and was gearing up to take decisive action. Concerned about the true nature of Justin's business and the potential misuse of the inheritance, my mom decided it was time to bring in professional help. She hired a private investigator to dig deeper into Justin's activities and the mysterious emails. The thought of him planning to misuse the money for unethical purposes infuriated her further, and she was adamant about protecting us from his deceit. The private investigator's findings confirmed our worst fears and shed new light on Justin's scheming. My mom briefed me on the details, and together we prepared for the next steps. It was clear that this was more than just a family dispute. It was about standing up against manipulation and ensuring justice was served. In that moment, the atmosphere in the room was charged with tension, a palpable mix of disbelief and resolve hanging between us. Justin's usual confidence seemed to falter under the weight of our accusations, his eyes darting from the camera to my mom, then to me, as if searching for some escape or loophole in our confrontation. "You can't possibly understand what you're talking about." "This is ridiculous," Justin tried to deflect, but his voice lacked its usual assertiveness. It was clear the tables had turned, and the power he once wielded so effortlessly was slipping through his fingers. Michael, caught in the middle of this familial storm, looked from his father to us, his expression a mix of confusion and realization. Perhaps for the first time, he began to see the man he called father for who he truly was, a revelation that seemed to shake him to his core. My mom, with a steely gaze fixed on Justin, stepped forward. "Not only do we understand, but we have proof, emails, recordings. You've been planning to launder money through a laundromat, all the while involving yourself with a known criminal. Martha's record speaks volumes, and your plans for this business are clear as day." Justin's attempts to maintain any semblance of innocence were crumbling fast. "You have no idea what you're getting into. This is my business, my life. You can't just barge in." "But we can, and we are," I interjected, bolstering my mom's stance. This isn't just about your business, Justin. This is about our lives, our safety. You've brought danger and illegality into our home, and we won't stand by and watch you destroy everything for your selfish gains. The evidence was indisputable. The audio recordings of Justin's and Michael's conversations, the emails outlining their plans, and now their caught in the act admissions made it impossible for Justin to deny any longer. The camera in my hands, still rolling, captured every word, every denial, and every excuse, ensuring there was no way out for him. You think you're clever, recording this, gathering evidence. Justin sneered, his composure cracking further. You may think you've won, but we don't think we've won, Justin. We know we have. My mom cut him off, her voice firm and unwavering. What you've done is not only morally reprehensible, but illegal. You've endangered this family, exploited my trust, and now you're going to face the consequences of your actions. As the confrontation reached its climax, Michael finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. Dad, how could you? It was a question loaded with betrayal and disillusionment, aimed at the man he had looked up to. The room fell silent for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling in. Justin, now devoid of his usual bravado, seemed to shrink before us. It was clear the game was over. My mom's next steps were clear: legal action, separation, and ensuring the safety and security of our family. As we left Justin to contemplate the ruin of his own making, my mom and I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with the truth on our side and the evidence in hand, we were ready to face whatever came next together. The veil had indeed been lifted, and in its place, a newfound strength and unity emerged between us, ready to rebuild and move forward from the shadows of deceit. I'm clueless about what you're hinting at. Why don't we call Martha? Maybe she can shed some light on this, huh? Justin tried to deflect with a tone that fairly masked his panic. You two think you've got it all figured out. Martha is just a friend, he added, but the confidence he attempted to project was waning rapidly. The compromising pictures we found tell a different story, I countered, my voice steady despite the tumult of emotions inside me. And seriously, who uses email for affairs these days? It's absurdly reckless. Justin, now visibly flustered, shot back, You went through my personal stuff. That's outrageous. No, Justin, what's outrageous is you. My mom interjected, her voice rising in indignation. How dare you repeatedly threaten my daughter over money that rightfully belongs to her? How dare you use threats to attempt to evict her from her own home? Your actions are indefensible. How dare you involve your son in your reckless plans, putting him at risk? And your audacity to plan using that money for illegal ventures is beyond forgiveness. Now, when it's time to account for your actions, you suddenly fall silent. She continued, her words cutting through the air like a blade. Justin, cornered and desperate, spat out, "Get that camera out of my face," as he lunged towards me in a blind rage. I dodged his attempt swiftly, his aggressive move only adding to the gravity of his unraveling. You're thinking of attacking my daughter now. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? My mom exclaimed, her tone a mix of disbelief and anger. Justin, defiant to the end, sneered, "You think you understand the situation. You know nothing." Well, let's see if the police agree with you. They should be arriving any minute now, I declared, watching closely for his reaction. Police? You wouldn't dare, he blustered, but his bravado was crumbling as the sound of police sirens grew closer. Justin's usual smugness disappeared, replaced by a look of sheer terror. It was the first time I'd seen him stripped of his arrogance, revealing the coward beneath. Please, Mary, let's not escalate this. I can explain, he pleaded, his voice cracking under the strain. "Save your explanations for the judge, you despicable man," my mom retorted with a disgust that left no room for ambiguity. "And Michael, don't think you're absolved from responsibility. You're both going to face the consequences of your actions." As the police arrived, it was clear that this was the beginning of the end for Justin's schemes. My mom's fierce declaration echoed in the air, marking a pivotal moment of justice for us. "This should teach you a lesson about disrespecting my daughter and me. You're not too young to understand the difference between right and wrong, and it's time for you to face the consequences," my mom asserted, her tone firm but fair. "Yes, Mom, I understand," Michael replied, knowing that he had crossed a line and needed to accept the repercussions of his actions. "Come on, Grace, don't you think this is all a bit too extreme?" Justin tried to argue, seeking some leniency. "Quite the opposite. This is barely scratching the surface of what's deserved," my mom countered, her resolve unwavering. "Emma, how's our live stream doing?" she inquired, adding a modern twist to ensuring that justice was seen to be done. "We've got over 5,000 viewers tuning in. This is making waves," I informed her, amazed at the digital audience we had attracted. And just to make things perfectly clear, my mom turned towards Justin, her voice steady and clear. "I want a divorce." "Yes, you heard it right, folks," she announced, making sure the live stream caught every word. The fallout from the live stream was monumental. The drama unfolded in real time for over 5,000 witnesses, and the story quickly spread to local newspapers and tabloids. Being at the center of this whirlwind was surreal, witnessing the swift downfall of Justin, my soon-to-be ex-stepfather, and the complicit Michael. The satisfaction of seeing justice served was palpable. Justin's world unraveled as he lost his job, friends, and even the support of some family members who chose to distance themselves. Facing serious charges, Justin's future hung in the balance, with the potential of spending up to 20 to 22 years behind bars if the court found him guilty. Meanwhile, Martha, his partner in crime, was also discovered by the police after attempting to lay low during the scandal. She too faced similar charges, her future uncertain. Through the turmoil, my mom and I found strength in each other. Our bond deepened as we navigated through the chaos, coming out stronger on the other side. Weekends were now our time to unwind on the patio, drinks in hand, reflecting on the absurdity and malevolence of Justin's actions. It was a period of healing and reaffirmation for us both. Good riddance, we toasted, a shared sentiment of relief and closure. Good riddance indeed.